people on the spot. But we got some new people. I'm not gonna have them stand or anything like that. I'm gonna just go ahead and give a disclaimer that I appreciate that you are here. Oh, man, you picked the lesson to come on. Just know that my heart is never to offend. But this lesson is going to make some of you uncomfortable.
Hallelujah.
The reason why it's going to make some of you uncomfortable because it's going to touch you in areas where this is about function. This is about addressing our mind, our perspectives, examining how can we be more like our ancestors.
Okay.
So it is not my intention to offend. This is my disclaimer. I love you all.
Hallelujah.
I love you. I just hope that this is edifying. So what I want y'all to do is, after y'all hear this, is that I would just like you all to process it. Examine it, see if what I'm saying is true. Look in the mirror and say, does Moray have a point? Watch the video again when it's posted on YouTube. Maybe some of you won't be offended by this. I pray that you're not, but I'm saying this now. Just in case. There you go. Just in case. So you are aware that. All right. I'm gonna give him another chance. All right. So, I don't know how some of y'all feel about the Apocrypha. I love the book of Ecclesiasticus. I've made that known that is one of my favorite books. Why is that one of my favorite books? I've told you all. Why is that one of my favorite books? Say it again. Say it louder.
Because it's
Say it with your chest. It's what?
Because it's practical.
Because it's practical. I love practical teachings. I love teachings that can be used, that I can implement, right? I've made this very known. So we're going to start off today. Some of you may not have it. If you do, turn to Ecclesiasticus chapter 12. If you don't, I'm going to read it anyway. Y'all ready? It says, starting at verse 10, Ecclesiasticus chapter 12. Never trust thine enemy.
What?
Come on now.
There you go. That's
Come
what
on
I'm
now.
about. Let the men speak. That's right. Don't muzzle them. Never trust thine enemy. Now, this is what we need to do from this point here. We got to start doing some things. We got to ask the text questions. So it says, never trust thine enemy. So what do we need to do? From that point. Well, yeah. But what do we need to do? Are you my enemy?
Oh.
Are you my enemy?
You
got to identify
That's right.
who is your enemy. You got to classify these things. Okay? So, let's go ahead and let's talk about this. Who is the enemy? Oh, so for some of you who don't know, these classes are interactive. I'm not asking rhetorical questions, so please provide your feedback. Who in your mind, there's no wrong answers. Don't say nothing crazy though. Who is the enemy?
Anybody gets the Father's word.
He says anybody against the Father's word. What else we got? Who is the enemy?
Non-Hebrews.
He said non-Hebrews. What, you said something?
The devil.
The devil. Who is the enemy? Somebody said Esau. Banging on Esau.
Just arrived.
Right, he just arrived throwing out stuff.
Anyone who wished to do you harm.
Anyone who wished to do you harm.
Come on now.
All right.
Or destroy.
So when you think about the enemy, and whoever you may attempt to classify as the enemy, you got to classify why is he your enemy? Why? This enemy that we have, in Babylon, where we are now, why are they the enemy? Because they're out to destroy us.
Hallelujah.
They're out to destroy us.
Mhm.
So let's back up before I get too far. So I heard a lot of people throw out stuff as far as who is the enemy. I did hear some correct answers, but I want everybody to keep going. So your enemy is really anyone who attempts to impede your progress, who comes against you, to oppress, to hinder, to stop your forward progression. And when we think of forward progression, there's a lot of different variables that we can add into that. But as us being Hebrews, anyone that's attempting to stop us from being able to serve who?
Yeah.
All right? Anyone who's able to stop us from being able to function. Anyone who's trying to stop us from being able to succeed, to progress, to provide for ourselves, to live life the way that life should be lived. See, back in the 50s, 60s, black people, right? We fought for something called what? Civil rights. People are fighting today for what? Black people are still trying to fight for civil rights, but people are trying to fight for equal rights. We never attained even what would be considered civil. We was pacified, but we never even reached that point. To reach the full potential of what it means to be civil, to be able to live life without being impeded, without being trampled upon. This has continued to happen till this day, correct? If I'm wrong, let me know. Okay, so our enemy is that which will impede that progress. That enemy can also look like you. That enemy can also look like you.
And say they keep Torah.
And you know, it's unfortunate. But go ahead and say it again. Say it a little
And
louder.
say that they keep Torah.
That's unfortunate, but it can happen that way. It can happen that way. But primarily speaking, it's anyone who attempts to block you, who attempts to come against you. So, now that I think about that, I heard someone say devil. You said devil, right? So, what is Satan in Hebrew? Okay, it's Satan. Hasatan, that means that's Satan. What does it mean?
Adversary.
It means adversary, right? It means adversary. It is a noun. It's a person, it's a place, or a thing.
Okay.
That's Satan. It comes from the word Satan, which means to oppose. All right? So that goes back into, let's transpose that back into our English understanding of an enemy. Anyone who attempts to impose or impede you is a what? Is a Satan. It's a title. Now, we know this to be the case. Because when you turn to Numbers 22, verse 22, you don't have to go there, I'm going to read it. We won't be there long. It said, and Yah's angered was kindled because he went. This is speaking of Balaam, right? It says, Yah's angered was kindled because he went. And the angel of Yahweh stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, donkey. All right. And his two servants were with him. Adversary. The angel of Yah stood as an adversary. You go to the Hebrew, what do you think you're going to find there? You're going to find Satan. So we know that he isn't the one that we call the devil. It is, the word means one who stands against. So he was standing against Balaam. Balaam was doing something that he was not supposed to be doing, so he stood against him. So that's the word that's being used there. Just for our understanding. So you don't be like, oh, that's false doctrine. This is how the language works. Just letting y'all know. That word is a noun. All right? It's not a proper noun. Proper noun is a name. Okay? So, there's some truth. I don't subscribe to the doctrine per se, but there is some truth when some people say the white man is the devil. When you look at the definition, once again, I don't subscribe to the doctrine as in conclusively every white single person born because of whatever means that they're the devil, but because that people group as a whole has created methods to do what?
Impede.
To impede,
Yeah.
to oppress, to deny, to destroy. So they are a Satan. Those who do such are a Satan. I'm not classifying the entire people, but those people who do such things are a Satan, which we would call a devil. So I'll just, for clarification, are we clear on this right now? Okay, all right. So that's what a Satan is. And so we're identifying the enemy, we're classifying these things. We've got to make sure that as we read the scriptures, that we're breaking down and we're truly trying to get an understanding of what's being conveyed. Back to the scripture. So it says, never trust thine enemy. For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him. And thou shalt be unto him as though had wiped a looking glass, and thou shalt know that his rust has not been altogether wiped away. Set him not by thee, lest when he have overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. In Israel, in Torah, they said, treat your neighbor as yourself. It says that there's one law, right? For the native born and the what?
Stranger.
All right. But with that being said, are we not able to identify that there are differences?
Okay.
Because if something dies of itself, are we allowed to eat it?
No.
But can you give it to someone else?
Yes.
Can the stranger be amongst the company of Israel?
Okay.
Can they be above them?
No.
Can they rule over them?
No.
Are you to set them over as a king over you?
No.
Never trust thine enemy.
Okay.
Never trust thine enemy. Though he humbled himself, right? So let's go back to the text. It says, set him not by thee, lest when he has overthrown thee, he stand up in thy place. Neither let him sit at thy right hand, lest he seek to take thy seat. And thou at the last remember my words and be pricked therewith. Verse 13. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten with a serpent? Y'all know what a charmer is, right? Y'all ever heard the story about it's like a old tale about the farmer and the frozen snake?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so I'll explain. So there's this tale. I won't call it a parable because the parable is supposed to have somewhat of a spiritual meaning, but it is definitely a applicable meaning that you can take from this. So the story goes, there was a farmer who came across on his land a frozen snake. Having compassion on this snake, he picks up the snake. He holds it close to his heart. He gives the snake warmth. He shows it care. And then the snake began to unthaw. And when the snake fully unthawed, going back to his natural instincts, he bit the man. And the man said, why would you bite me? You were frozen along the road. I picked you up. I cared for you. I gave you warmth. I did these things for you. And the snake replied to him, Well, you knew I was a snake when you picked me up. There are some people you will come across who just have a certain nature about them, and there's nothing that's going to change them. And you have to be able to identify, classify these individuals, and you don't trust them. You don't trust them, and you don't trust things that they put in place for you.
Okay.
All right? I know you're probably thinking, like, what's offensive about this? Ain't got there yet. I'm setting the stage. We walking this out.
Right, okay.
It's like, I'm with this. Like, hey, go ahead. Setting the stage. So, the fact of the matter is, if you trust a snake, what's going to happen?
He's gonna bite you.
It's going to bite you. You play with a snake, what's going to happen?
He's gonna bite you.
If you trust the enemy, what's going to happen?
He's gonna hurt
It's
you.
going to bite you. It's going to bite you. You got something?
No, when I'm reading 12 and 13, it's just the first thing came to you like the Native Americans. How,
That's a perfect example.
yeah.
That's a go ahead and explain that.
Go ahead.
In
You
your
got
own
the point
words.
already. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can't be giving your ideas to me, man. So what he's talking about is he's referencing the Native Americans and how the story goes. Is that the Europeans came over, trusted the Indians, trusted them, the Native Americans trusted them. Sorry, and we know what happened from there.
Yeah.
You know, they made covenants with the people who don't understand covenants. They made covenants with the people who don't understand covenants. And so, if you make a covenant with someone who don't value the covenant, what's the ultimate end?
You're the mind.
They're going to break the covenant. They're going to break it. Because they don't understand it. It's of no value.
Okay.
Keeping their word is of no value. You know, they used to do, in ancient times, they used to do certain types of blood. There's multiple types of blood covenants. You can have it when a man goes into a virgin. That's a blood covenant.
Okay.
There was another form of cutting the hand, and then, both of them cut their hands. Two individuals cut their hands, and they would shake hands. That was another form of a blood covenant. So this agreement, this pact that they are now making, their blood is now infused. It was a big deal. So you're dealing with the people who don't understand that, and it's whatever. It's whatever. And so, they gave them stories. I mean, I've read the narratives about the Europeans giving them blankets, right? What was on the blanket?
Smallpox.
Ooh.
What's up?
I ain't mad at y'all. Smallpox. You trusted them. You tried to show them the land, how to grow their own food. They took advantage. And they took the land. Took your lives. And they kicked you on down the line. Never trust thy enemy. Don't let the snake bite you. That's why the text says, who's going to pity a charmer who is bit by a serpent? Why are you playing with snakes? Nobody going to feel sorry for you. Why would you do that?
You actually know me laugh at me.
I'm going to laugh at you. If anybody's doing something, trust me, and I got a sense of humor, fam. I'll tell you this right now. I love to laugh. If you're doing something you ain't got no business doing, and you get hurt, well, you know what? I'll help take care of you. If a child is doing, let me break it down right here. If a child is doing something, I told them not to do it, and they want to keep doing it. I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch. And once they hurt themselves, you know what I'm saying? See, that's what you get. That's what you get. What I tell you. And I'm gonna bandage them up. I'm gonna nurse them back to health. But I'm gonna point out the fact that you're hard-headed. And this wouldn't have happened if you listen. Hebrews.
That's our trait.
Don't be hard-headed.
Right.
That's our trait.
That's our trait. He calls us stiff-necked. Stiff-necked people. That is a trait of ours. We gotta break that. We don't have to be.
Right.
You know, this is an easy way to find out who's the people of the book. All you gotta do is examine, like, who's the most hard-headed people around here?
Right.
That's the Negro. We hard-headed.
Right.
And we're so forgiving, though.
Yeah. Of our enemies.
We're of our enemies.
Right.
We're so forgiving. So, what we have to do is identify these things. Y'all ready to keep going?
Yeah.
All right. Who will pity a charmer that is bitten by a serpent, or any such as come nigh wild beasts? If you want to go near a wild beast, what's gonna happen to you?
You know, make it
They're gonna mangle you. They're gonna mangle you, and that's your fault. So one that go to a sinner and is defiled with him in his sins, who will pity? For a while he will abide with thee, but if thou begin to fall, he will not carry. He's not going to wait. He's not going to be there with you. He's not going to be by your side when you fall. An enemy speaketh sweetly with his lips, but in his heart he imagined how to throw thee into a pit, and will weep with his eyes. But if he find an opportunity, he would not be satisfied with blood. When I look at all this stuff that's going on with the protests and the riots, and you know, for a long time there was no type of demands or nothing like. It was just people just angry, just want, you know. I understand why they're angry. Don't get me wrong, but you know, they're just doing all of these things, and now you got people, you got politicians now who wearing kente cloths and kneeling and stuff like. And black people are once again falling for it.
Yeah.
Falling for the okie doke.
Yeah.
Believing easily, so easily that someone will change without any type of restitution or reconciliation. How can you verify that that person actually changed without sacrifice? What are they willing to lose to prove to you that something has changed about them?
That's right.
What are you willing to give up? That's true repentance. That's why it talks about in the scriptures when someone steals, they're supposed to do what?
and some.
They are supposed to return and some. This is called what? Restitution. This is called restitution. You have to give up something. You have to now become at a loss, at a deficit to restore. Remember last week we was talking about shalom? And how we kind of taken away a lot of the essence of the word shalom. Because the only time we use it is as a greeting, because we're not really understanding of what that word actually means, right? So restitution is supposed to do what? If you remember what the word means.
Make you whole.
It's supposed to make you whole. That's what shalom means. It's wholeness, completeness. So you can't steal from someone, apologize, and think that it's okay. They are not whole. They don't have shalom. That's what the word means. So this is what you have to do when dealing with an enemy. Don't trust just their words. Don't trust any superficial thing that they can present to your face. They have to give up something. They got to sacrifice something. They have to now experience loss to restore you. Don't be fooled.
If that what Jacob did when he saw when he came back,
Absolutely.
he wanted to restore him.
Absolutely.
He knew what it took.
Verse if adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first. And though he pretend to help thee, yet he undermine thee. Undermine. That brings us to this. Never trust thy enemy, and he is just like a snake, and he will undermine. What systems that have been created in America that can be used to undermine you?
Education.
You said what?
Education.
Education. That's powerful. We're gonna touch on everything. What else we got? You said what? You said TV. So what would we classify that as? Entertainment?
Religion.
She owned it. She said
Ain't playing today.
religion. She ain't playing no
She
games.
is not playing.
No chases.
Yeah.
So we got entertainment, school or education, religion. What else? Social media. So we can just put that in classified as media. You can use that as radio, some stuff like that. That could be a subcategory of entertainment. It could be media can also be news and stuff like that. So media. All right. What else we got?
Health.
You said what?
Health industry.
Health industry. Dropping them bombs. What other systems? We gotta identify the enemy.
Come on now.
That's right.
They created these systems.
Democracy.
Democracy.
Government.
Government type that on my thing real quick. Democracy.
That covers all.
My goodness.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Welfare system.
Welfare system. That's an easy one to break up the family.
Yeah.
What else?
Capitalism.
You say what? Fiat currency. Finance. See, the thing is, actually, before I get into that, so you said democracy. Anyone ever heard of Edward Bernays' book Propaganda? If you have, raise your hand. 3 people. Okay. It's an excellent book. And in the first page, see, Edward Bernays was, the information in here was used, when propaganda really began to get big, was for the World War I. World War I. Finding a way to get the Americans, to the United States, to participate in a war that they said that they wasn't going to have anything to do with. So what they had to end up doing was demonizing, it was Germany?
Mm-hmm.
They had to figure out a way to demonize Germany, to get the American people behind the government so that they could be on board with going to war. Balfour Declaration. Propaganda was used. And they made them to be some monsters. That sounds familiar.
That's a playbook.
Yeah, that sounds pretty familiar. Made them out to be some monsters. So then you rally the people behind you so that you can go fight and kill these people who ain't got nothing to do with you, had no beef with you. But now people are in support of people's death. Because an enemy has been misclassified, misidentified, sleight of hand. Propaganda. Chapter 1, actually, I don't know if it's chapter 1 or the preface, but I forgot. I didn't put it on here. It says, no, I'm saying it is chapter 1. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized don't be a hostile time right now. Don't do it, Elliot.
Don't do it.
We're not doing this today.
Oh man.
I'm sorry.
Let's see what that
Can you look back at me? Yeah, right? The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. And you mentioned democracy, right? It's an important element in democratic society. I'm going to read that again. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. It goes on to say we are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society. Universal literacy was supposed to educate the common man to control his environment. But once he can read and write, he will have a mind fit to rule. So ran the democratic doctrine. But instead of a mind, universal literacy have given him rubber stamps inked with advertising slogans, editorials, with published scientific data, and with the trivialities of the tabloids and the platitudes of history, but quite innocent of original thought. Each man's rubber stamps are duplicates of millions of others, so that when those millions are exposed to the same stimuli, all receive identical imprints. It may seem an exaggeration to say that the American public gets most of its ideas in this wholesale fashion.
That's true.
The mechanism by which ideas are disseminated on a large scale is propaganda, in the broad sense of an organized effort to spread a particular belief or doctrine. That's propaganda. AKA game. Game. Running game on you. Running game on you, and you falling for it. Because you haven't identified the enemy.
Right.
Come on.
Not that you don't believe that you can't be deceived, but that you haven't identified the ways in which you can be deceived. So in essence, you are trusting your enemy. The influence of the nations around you, if you look at Judges 2:21 through 23, it says, I would no longer drive out before them any of the nations that Joshua left when he died, in order to test Israel by them, whether they would take care to walk in the way of Yahuwah as their fathers did or not. What am I getting at? How did Israel respond to the neighbors around them?
They start wanting to be like them.
They start wanting to be like them. Instead of being this set-apart nation that they were intended to be, they started to be like those around them. Instead of being influential, they became the influenced. We are still supposed to be set apart.
Okay.
Being that we're scattered, we can't constitute ourselves as a set-apart nation at the moment. We don't have a land. We're not able to govern ourselves. We're under the thumb of an oppressor. But you still have the means of which you can set your lives, your houses, your jurisdiction apart. But here's the problem. Don't take offense to this. But a lot of you still keep your children in public school. And if we can classify public school, education as an enemy, so why are you in bed with the enemy?
Come on now.
Why are you in bed with the enemy? Why are you allowing your household to be influenced by a structure that was never designed for you? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is the logical outcome? If you walk this thing out to its logical conclusion, what do you think is going to be the end result?
The children will desire the works of the enemy.
The children will desire the works of the enemy.
Natural.
You believe that because an institution was created, that this institution is now needed for proper function. You have convinced yourself this. They have convinced you of this, and you have believed it. That this institution is needed for proper function. That it is needed for survival.
Right.
And when you speak to people about this, what begins to happen is that they get defensive. When they protect the system. What is that called? When you protect your oppressor. I forgot. What is that called? Stockholm Syndrome. You protect your oppressor. We have didn't know whether Hebrew or not. For lack of a better term, let's go here and use the blanket term. You got black people in the public schools. We know the system is not for them.
Yeah, we know.
We know the system is corrupt. You got the school to prison pipeline that exists.
It's good. Come on.
Where just like how when crimes are committed, you got a black person and a white person. The black person get the weightier sentence. The school to prison pipeline actually operates the same way, where if the black child does something wrong, they get a harsher penalty than the white child.
Dang.
The stats are there. I'm not making this up. Look it up for yourself. That's the school to prison pipeline. They are preparing your child for that result. They are doing that. See, the thing is, the exposure that you are subjecting your own children, the ones who you say you love, you are subjecting them to exposure that's going to ultimately corrupt them in some way, shape, or form. What are they exposed to in school? All right, I want some feedback. I've been talking too long. I want some feedback. What are they exposed to in school?
Everything.
She said everything. Look at that.
Everything negative.
It's like, everything. Go ahead, Moraine. Continue.
The biggest thing being pushed right now, homosexuality.
Homosexuality. Homosexuality. What else we got?
Whitewashing.
Whitewashing. What else we got? You said what?
Evolution.
Evolution. What else?
Lies.
Point blank period. Lies. Anybody else?
Violent sex.
Violent sex. All of these things. Look. Okay. Let's stop there. Since I've been in Georgia, I've been here since 2014. I remember I had to have my children, and I had my children in good schools. How do we judge this? You look up the schools. They got good state tests, and the grades are good. Stuff like that. This is a good school. This is a good school. I want my child to go here. You need to attend this place right here. Have my child in a good school. My children. They were getting good grades, and I had to talk to them when they were about 8, 9 years old about what we know as the birds and the bees. Why am I having to talk to my children about sex at that age? Because despite what the test scores say, there were conversations and things happening at a school that should not be happening at a school. There's children in the room, so I'm not going to go into detail. But it caused me to have to talk to my children about sex at the ages of 8 or 9. That's insane. But they were at a good school. That's what we want. We want good schools for our children. So they don't have to participate, but the seeds are being planted. They're now starting to have questions. There are conversations that they're hearing that their peers are talking about. And it's only a matter of time before they find some way to not be left out. What child wants to be left out in school? Who wants that? Children don't desire to be left out among their peers. So what do you think? What do you think peer pressure is? What do you think the end result is going to be? You allow them to be subjected to a biased curriculum, the deviant behavior, mandatory vaccinations.
Come on now. Come on now. So,
Am I lying?
no, you don't.
I got a question.
Okay.
How many hours of school is mandatory here in the state of Georgia?
4.5 hours a day.
4.5 hours a day for school. How long are these children usually in school?
6 to 8.
Just say.
About 8 hours, something like that. should they be doing with that time? You say what? Everything? Everything that's positive? Look, I tell you this. Since my children are being homeschooled, I will be perfectly honest with you. Shabbat shalom, I would be perfectly honest with you that I would not be able to accomplish the stuff that I've accomplished on my homestead without my children.
Okay.
There's no way possible that without their hands, that would have been feasible. So not only are they getting their homeschooling, but they're also getting the opportunity to learn how to do what, Jaden?
Feed our family.
Feed our families.
Come on now.
That's very homeschool.
Come on now.
That's part of it.
That's part of their curriculum.
That's right.
It is mandatory for you to learn how to grow food.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's mandatory. They're wasting so much time on top of the things that they're being exposed to, but you have allowed yourself to be convinced that these institutions are going to benefit your children. You're being naive
Come on now.
if you believe that you can subject your children to this type of stuff. 8 hours a day, 8, 9 years. I think by the time they're in high school, think that something's not going to happen to them. That they're not going to begin to bear fruit from the seeds that have been sown up until that point.
Facts.
You're being naive if you believe that. So let's play a little game. I wrote some numbers down. You got an 8-hour school day. Let's just say, this is all hypothetical numbers, right? But just work with it. You got an 8-hour school day. 30 minutes commuting to and from. 2 hours of homework and chores. 4 hours free time. This is for a 24-hour day. 30 minutes dinner. And I have that in brackets. That's called the pre-decontamination phase. I'll explain what that means.
No time for y'all.
1 hour of dedicated decontamination time, and then 8 hours of sleep. You honestly believe that you, in the total of what the pre-decontamination time is, like I said, that's dinner. So that's the 30 minutes. That is when you're sitting down at the table with your child, and you begin to talk to them. To begin to try to open up the paths of communication to find out, hey, how was your day? What's going on with you? To try to figure out how they're functioning outside of the home. Because of course they're spending more time outside of it than they are in it.
That's right.
So that's the pre-decontamination stage. The 1 hour of dedicated decontamination time is when you are actively trying to pour into them scriptures, philosophy, or anything that you believe, that you have convinced yourself will actually change anything that's affecting them from the outside. So you add that time up, you have an hour and a half block. You are being naive. I told you, some of you may get offended. You're being naive if you believe that an hour and 30 minutes of decontamination is going to do away with the direct 8 hours that they are being subjected to everything outside of the home.
Then they're done now.
You're being naive if you think that doing that is going to actually help. The enemy, what was the very first line of Ecclesiastes 12 when we started? What was the first thing we said?
Trust not your enemy.
Never trust that enemy, but you trust him with your children.
Help.
Why are you doing that? That's the only rhetorical question I'm going to ask today. Why are you doing it?
First, you have to identify your enemy.
And we have.
Identify the enemy.
So then why are we trusting them?
Got cut there.
I hope y'all still with me. I hope y'all still with me. Still here? All right. So, for a little bit of a visual, let's imagine this being a 24 hours jug. So we just gave numbers for 24-hour day. Let's use this as a 24-ounce jug. If you took an ounce and a half out of this, pour it out, and then the next day you pour back into it 8 ounces, and then at the end of the day you pour out an ounce and a half, what's going to happen? It's going to overflow. Your cup will run it over. So we can pretend as though these ideals that we have of protecting our children, yet putting them in harm's way, we can pretend that these are good things because we want to defend public schools, because we're not realizing that we're trusting our enemy. Your enemy is who?
Anybody that impedes.
Anyone who impedes, opposes, comes against. Remember, classify your enemy. You got to know who your enemy is. Can your enemy look like you?
Yes.
All right. Identify who your enemy is. What is the ways of your enemy? And then go back to that scripture and read it. Never trust thy enemy. It says what? It says the last thing it says is that he will undermine you. He will undermine you. Y'all remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki? What's that? Tell me what that is. Talk to me.
When the United
Since they
States
won't
dropped
blow it up.
One person. What you say?
when the United States dropped the atomic bomb.
The United States had dropped the atomic bomb. Okay. A lot of people died, right?
Right.
A lot of people died. Did everyone die?
Not at all.
Not everyone died. Some people did live. Not sure how much y'all know about this, but I'm sure we could use a little common sense to figure this out. Those who live close to the, let's say, those who are close proximity,
Even far.
what do you believe happened?
They got sick, terribly sick, then died.
You got sick. Those who were a little more distant, but they still had exposure, what happened?
They got
And they
sick.
transferred it over essentially.
Over time.
Yep.
Over time, because of the exposure.
Make it plain, Maureen.
Let me say it again. I want to make sure that this is clear. Over time, because of the exposure, they were affected.
That's right.
It wasn't immediately.
That's
They had to form children.
It wasn't immediately. Over time. Your enemy is undermining everything that you think you are doing. And you are voluntarily exposing them to the very thing that can destroy them. How y'all feel right now? I need a status check. I need a status check. Y'all good? Y'all still with me?
Still with you.
You help us.
I hope so. Somebody tell me, what did we, just a little bit, how did we view that word captive?
To be bewitched.
To be bewitched. We looked at the definition. So I'm going to read it again today. The definition for the word captive is to be taken or held as a prisoner of war. Another definition says, which is one of my favorites on here, held under control of another, but having the appearance of independence, especially owned or controlled by another concerned and operated for its needs rather than for the open market. We are being held captive. Our ideas, our perspectives, our decision making is captive. And the synonyms for that, when my brother said bewitched, the synonyms for captivate is beguile, lure, ensnare, and bewitch. These systems, we identified these systems, right? You got the financial system, you got politics, you got schools, arts, entertainment. These things captivate you. You think these things are needed. They're captivating. But that word captivate comes from captive. That word captive means to be held under control by another, by having the appearance of independence. These things are steady captivating you. You're not identifying your enemy properly.
Come on now.
All right? There's a quote by this man named Dr. Amos Wilson. I don't know if any of you heard of him. But he says, we not only live under certain conditions, but the conditions in which we live in us. Say it again. We not only live under certain conditions, but the conditions in which we live in us. Who taught you to dress the way you do? Who taught you to think the way that you think? To process things the way that you process it. To react the way that you react. Those ways that you have come from a source. Have you identified the source of why you do what you do? Why do you see things the way you see things? They all come from a source. Have you questioned that yet? When you hold tightly to things that may not be beneficial, have you questioned why do you do such things? Where down your line have you determined that I have to hold on to things that's detrimental for me? Was it somewhere in your family's line that has to be pointed out that caused you to not want to let go of things? Some type of trauma or something.
Come on now.
Have we identified the sources of our behavior, of our thought processes? When you begin to do these things, then you can finally embrace who you really are.
Come on now.
You can actually live this walk the way it's meant to be lived. But you got to stop allowing everything to captivate you. That's such a beautiful word. It's so captivating. They made that word sound so good. Not knowing where it comes from. They made it sound so good. But that was such a captivating movie.
Right.
The critics said it was so captivating.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that sounds better than, that was very mentally controlling.
Programming.
I mean, the subliminal messages that was in that was excellent. Much easier way for you to digest that, I'll tell you.
Now back to your regular program.
Right. So you got to determine what's the source of your understanding. We are walking manifestations of our environment. That's what we are. We're walking manifestations of our environment. Now there was another thing when we talked about things that can undermine us. I know she was like, they're dropping gems. She was like, education, religion, and she was just dropping them all out there. But let's talk about one of those. We need to see how this influences us. Let's talk about the system of religion. Let's go back to that beginning text. Y'all still there at Ecclesiasticus?
Yes, sir.
I need somebody to read the first one, 12.
What chapter?
12. Chapter 12, verse 10.
Never trust thine enemy.
Never trust thine enemy.
For like as a lion, so like as iron rusting, so is his wickedness.
All right, now go ahead and read, I think it's 17.
If adversity come upon thee, thou shalt find him there first.
Because he did it.
Right.
And thou he pretend to help thee, yet shall he undermine thee.
Yet shall he undermine thee. So we begin to identify the things that we would classify as enemies, right? You got to do that. You got to determine what your enemy is, right? What your enemy looks like, what belongs to your enemy. Because you got to understand whose jurisdiction you are under.
Okay.
You got to recognize these things, right? All right, so since we identify religion as a system that can undermine you, talk to me. How? How can religion undermine you?
False teaching. Get you,
She said false teaching.
keep you pacified when you should be mad as hell.
Say keep you pacified when you should be mad as hell. What else?
Keep you distracted.
Huh?
Keep you distracted.
Keep you distracted. Anything else?
Idolatry.
Idolatry,
You said tradition.
traditions. See, the thing is,
We live under the New Testament. We don't. That's the.
Yeah.
reward you for bad behavior.
Okay.
We're going to get in just a minute. We're going to actually get into some of these things too. All right, so that's good. Organized religion is an enemy because it oppresses minds and dulls their ability to function. This is one of the reasons why organized religion can be classified as an enemy. There's a lot of different ways that it can be classified, or reasons it can be classified as an enemy. But one of them is that it pulls, right? It pulls from people, it gives no return. Organized religion. Religion replaced culture for the melanated person here in America.
True.
Religion replaced culture. That right in itself is an undermining factor. It is a detriment to your ability to actually accept culture for what it is. Because it's already been superseded by something. The thing is, man, when you're dealing with religion, you ever try to tell someone, you know, that Hebrew, have these conversations, especially when you're more newer in your walk, you try to discuss these things with people, and they hit you with the spiritual woo-how, you know what I'm saying? Hit you with the, because they can't see past. They can't see past the doctrine. They can't see past the spiritualness of it. See, religion has told you, it has made you comfortable believing and accepting that you can cut off your bloodline. Religion made you feel that it was comfortable to do so.
Okay.
Cut off your bloodline, and then believe that your identity is found in a supernatural, deified ancestor that you have never met. While simultaneously telling every people who believe in this religion that their same identity is found in that same individual, while not having them remove their culture. So you can have an Irish Christian who will still have their culture and believe in Christianity. You can have these people groups who, I've seen Korean Christians, and they still have their culture. All day. They still have their culture. But it is us who the book speaks of, who have completely and utterly substituted culture for religion.
Slave culture.
Slave culture. See, religion in its proper context is a part of culture. So there's nothing inherently wrong with religion in itself. It is when you organize it and structure it and separate it from the actual context in which it actually functions, that's where you get your problems. That's where you get the manipulation.
Yeah.
And they've convinced you that it's okay to cut off your bloodline. Because your identity is found in Christ. While yet the man who will write these things, Brother Shaul, he knows who he's from. He knows what tribe he's from.
Okay.
And he's proud of it. tribe of Benjamin,
Circumcised on the 8th.
circumcised on the 8th day. He's proud of his culture. Not once did he ever say it does not matter. But organized religion has made you feel comfortable in doing so. So how has organized religion made you comfortable in cutting off your bloodline? Homosexuality. That has become so prevalent. I got you in a second. That has become so prevalent within organized religion that pastors in Christianity, that it is now okay to be gay and be a pastor. Well, at one point in time, it was hellfire and brimstone if you were gay. You can eat all the pork you wanted, but you couldn't be gay.
Right. Not publicly.
Because they were gay.
But then, you know, over time, because that's how toxic, that's how radiation works. Over time, you get sick, the effects begin to come up, and then the exposure. And then it was cool to have gay people in the choir. It's cool to have that, but long as if they stayed there and they didn't say they were gay. You can tell they were gay. You can tell that they're clearly gay.
But too much movement up there.
Right.
Choir director.
Or
You can
just
clearly
have
tell.
identity crisis.
Right.
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 I'm sorry, Aki. What's going on? You got your hand raised.
Yeah. Like are you saying how they convince us to cut off our genealogy because mainstream Christianity doesn't even acknowledge genealogy.
They did not acknowledge genealogy. So they've made it comfortable for you to practice homosexuality now, because once again, we went from no gays to, okay, we got gay people in the choir, but they can't be openly talking about they gay. So now, you got TV shows with gay pastors. It's very convenient. What you got, Elder?
There's a complete opposition of functionality.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Because they don't acknowledge genealogy. And because they reward bad behavior, it's okay for you to have abortions. There's no problem with that. Vasectomies. You can do that. You can cut off your bloodline. They've made it comfortable to do these things. While yet the entire book tells you to be fruitful and multiply.
That's right.
Over and over and over.
That's right. It's first command.
It is the very first one. And it is reiterated over and over and over. But the enemy is a slick one. The enemy is a slick one. It's going to find ways to keep you from reproducing. It's going to find every single way. This is why you have to identify. Who knows anything about Planned Parenthood? All right. Would you say that was a friend or enemy who created that?
Enemy.
Enemy. Clearly, like it came up with who their target was. We don't have to assume. It was leaked.
Right.
Got to identify. But under the guise, because we don't know how to identify properly and classify things, under the guise of Planned Parenting,
Right.
you go ahead and have this abortion.
Get on this birth control.
Continue. It's okay. It's okay. Let's take the birth control. Let's do the vasectomy. It's okay.
They do them for free. They do it for free.
Oh
No
yeah. I
appointment
mean,
necessary.
you,
Walk in.
that insurance gonna cover that vasectomy real quick.
Mm-hmm.
They ain't covering the reversal. That come out some money. But that's what organized religion would do. It make you feel comfortable doing stuff like that. When the book says, and I'm not going to read all the scriptures, but I'm going to just tell you, I'm just doing a quick rundown of the different places where it mentions this. Genesis 1:28 says it to mankind. Genesis 8:7 he says it to Noah. Genesis 9:1 Noah says it to his sons. Abraham's descendants should be as numerous as what? Clearly, you got to continue to reproduce, right? This is going to happen. Genesis 26:22 says to Isaac. Genesis 35:11, it could keep going. We already know the Exodus narrative. They got afraid because we kept reproducing. Sounds familiar. Right? It doesn't stop. Jeremiah 9:6, Yah tells us that in Babylon. So we can't sit back and think like, okay, well, you know, we're here in captivity, we're in Babylon, you know, these things don't apply. Jeremiah 29:6 says something different. You're literally commanded to keep doing so, to increase. As a matter of fact, in case you didn't get it, he told you to increase and not decrease. Just in case you didn't get it the first time he said it. Say it another way.
Say it again.
Say it another way.
Say it again.
Maybe you can understand it. And the list goes on. The list goes on, but we've allowed ourselves to be captivated. Thanks, sir. We've allowed ourselves to be captivated and so trusting. What you got, brother?
I kind of just want to go back when you were saying, we also watch our enemy use his religion against other cultural people and strip them. We watched the fall of Russia, strip those people. We watched, even when you were saying about the Indonesians, I've seen, I'm from Chicago, so in a neighborhood that I once grew up in school with and everything was very diverse. And I've seen it convert by the time we got into high school where their households were all the same. So I used to go into my Indian guy's house, you know, from Nepal, and his house just smelled like syrup and everything at first, right, from that curry, right? And then the next 2 to 3 years ago, his house smelled like McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Just to kind of like bring it on. Where I watched his sister, you know, work hand in hand with the mom in the house. And all that. Then by the time she was graduating from high school, you know, she got spike hair, you know, she's using foul language, you know, and she's one of them. And that's what they did. They came in a household and hit them with that Christianity. And it destroyed they gave up their culture for it. And I believe Satan or Haleo himself has something to do with those things.
It's very, I'm gonna get you in 1 second. It's very, very true. And there's a point, and I don't want to skip a few slides to get to it, but we're going to actually get to something that's very similar to what it is that you're talking about, but that's very, very true. And that goes back to the exposure. You know, if you're not protecting what's under you, if you're not protecting your jurisdiction, then these things, once you allow your children, even yourself, but let's narrow the focus back down to our children, the next generation. That exposure will change them. And you are fighting an uphill battle if you think that it won't. How do you think they're going to look at actual culture?
Yeah.
In a society that's predominantly Christian? And Christianity, we know how most of us, some of us ain't been a Christian, but most of us have been a Christian. So we know the tenets of Christianity. We know the way it operates. And we know you can do whatever you want. And it's okay. Because you're forgiven. Because you're forgiven. So they're going to look at culture that tells you, hey, every culture, actual indigenous culture, has some type of moral standard that must be adhered to by the tenets of that culture. Every culture has these. It's not just Hebrew. This is in every culture. But if that is replaced with religion, then how eventually is your children going to look at culture when you're putting them in an environment that says you can do whatever you want, but in home you're like, we got to keep these commandments. You are fighting yourself. You're fighting yourself. See, with us, culturally speaking, I imagine us being like a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. Now, clearly it's not a match. I'm sorry, before I get to that, you had your hand raised.
You said what I was going to say exactly. But because, you know, I have people, a lot of religious people in my family, all of us, like you said. But like on the deathbed, as long as you say, I believe in Jesus, I don't care how you lived your life,
Right,
you say it.
right.
You know, and they'll stand up and say
That's
that in the funerals and stuff. You know, so that you know, because I've had uncles that was totally wicked. And then the preacher get up and say, but he, on his deathbed, he said, you know, he believed in Jesus and gave his life to Jesus. And all the stuff that he did.
Right.
This is how it
Before
works.
he died,
Everybody did the same thing.
you know, it's like that was forgiven and he went to heaven.
I remember reading, when I was a Christian, I remember reading some stuff, and it didn't make no sense to me. It didn't make no sense to me, but I'm like, they say so, I guess. It's like Hitler, they said, you know, if Hitler did all these things, but right before he died, he says, Jesus,
Right.
I give my life to you, then all is forgiven and he's going to heaven. And that didn't sit well with me. I'm like, something about that just don't seem right.
Right.
That can't be right. But what do I know? Surely these pastors know what they're talking about.
We have masters in biblical theology.
Surely.
Right.
Right, went to seminary.
Let's say it's a seminary.
Right.
He did
But-
study. He got a degree
But now
in
think
it.
of this. Think of this.
Right.
Let's think of this. But we're still sending our children into places
This is true.
Come
where
on.
this ideology still exists.
Keep telling them, teacher. Keep telling them.
We're still doing it. And we can sit here and laugh and make, yeah, this guy don't make no sense. All right. I'm going to pray with you before you go. All right. Have a great day.
Oh, God.
Let your light shine.
Let you,
World of regret.
it's going to affect us. Especially being that we are people that have replaced our culture. So as I was saying, was about the square peg. So I imagine us being a square peg in a round hole. Clearly it's not a fit. It doesn't match. It doesn't belong there. But you know what happens? If you take a sludge hammer, mallet, and you beat that square peg, why is that at that circle hole? You know what's gonna happen? It's gonna fit. It's gonna go inside that hole. Clearly, it doesn't belong. The edges are now broken off. There's gaps on the sides, but technically it fits.
Or
Technically,
it actually changes its makeup. It changes.
integrity of the peg. It is now compromised. Because your desire to get it to fit, you have compromised the actual peg itself. It no longer has an identity. You take that peg out, take the peg out. Watch what happens. It's not a circle. It's not a square anymore either. It doesn't have the edges now. So this peg no longer has an identity. It is compromised. And that was what I see us as we continue to assimilate to a culture that does not belong to us.
Like African American.
Uh-oh.
This is what I see. A bunch of compromised square pegs.
Wow.
Don't be biting off my stuff.
I'm gonna start using. I'm gonna tell you.
Right, this time.
So check it. Check it. So one thing that's very odd about the black community, right? Is that the black man, woman, child, we start off in, I'm speaking typically, right? We start off in the structure of Christianity. Then along this path, we can, what's called wake up. And we can go into a realm of consciousness, so to speak, right?
You woke, brother?
You won't. See, one thing that I've noticed about the black mind is that its understanding constantly morphs, right? We're steady going to, once we wake up out of that Christian phase, we're going to continue to desire more information. So what I've noticed is that we go from Christianity, and this may not necessarily be the order, but then you go to Islam, and then a person can leave Islam and go to what? Kemetic.
Oh.
And then from there, you can go to Hebrew Israelite, right? I found the truth. I found the truth. And then you can bang on Esau all day. And you can hold to whatever doctrines you want, and you in the truth. But then something strange happens. Something strange happens. Is that eventually, one day, that person no longer professes to be an Israelite. And then they get off into African spirituality.
Come on now. When you start learning too.
Then you go into that. And then some make it all the way up to the boss level of becoming just an atheist. Because something went wrong down the line where none of this made sense anymore. All it is this. But you want to know the common denominator I've seen in individuals who have taken that path? Common denominator is that there was no actual culture in place. There was no culture in place.
They were looking for religion, they were looking for culture.
Exactly. Exactly. So they've gained knowledge and information, and they processed it however their mind processed up, and they'll go from this into this into this. But because there was no actual culture in place. Notice I said the Hebrew Israelite as well, and then they changed. So we got to touch on that, because I understand that a lot of us think that because we went back to the laws, statutes, and commandments, that we went back to culture.
No.
We don't really understand the totality of culture. So, how many of us know someone who is Hebrew who's no longer Hebrew? Y'all ain't been in the walk long enough. Or you at least, at the minimum, ain't on social media. Because they always profess it on social media. You can actually see when it's coming. You can actually see when it's coming. So, what happens is because there was no actual culture in place. That's the common denominator. That's what I found. If y'all can find something different, let me know, please. Let me know. But, you know, you're dealing with an unculturated mind. Go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out when you say culture, what are you defining as culture?
Oh, we're gonna
The way we dress, the way we eat, the way we
we're gonna
speak.
get into that.
The whole Torah.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that in just a second. In just a second. So these people, on their search for self-knowledge, self, the gnosis, they got that information, but they didn't live anything. There was no implementation. Because as black people, right, we are the most spiritual people. This is true. But there is something about a culture that binds you to it. It is to be protected. It is to be cherished. See, what we have done, and I'm speaking we as a whole, but I'm specifically about Hebrews right now. What we have done is we try to convince people we're Hebrew by our words.
Mm-hmm.
Try to convince people that we're Hebrew by the things that we say. By how much knowledge we can attain, how smart we can be on YouTube. We believe that this is going to convince people that we are the people of the book. You look at West Africa. Look at West Africa. You can take the Igbos, right? I've read a couple books about the Igbos. One thing about them is why do we believe that they are the people of the book?
Because of that culture. They're still practicing it. And they see it.
It is the culture that people actually live. They can say that they're Hebrew all they want. But when you match up the lifestyle of the individual or the tribe, the people, what is it reflecting? What is it reflecting? So people have gone over here, they've done studies. There's a book called Among the Igbos. In the beginning of the book, where he's writing his preference, he tells you if you're going to go spend time there, you need to study Levitical law before you even go over there. He's like, the similarities are remarkable. It's because it was something that was observable. It was something that they could see among those people, and the people didn't even know it. But because of culture, it is passed down generation after generation. Sometimes you have to tell them who they are. They'll tell you their path or something. I mean, that's not the same for that's not saying for all of them. But some of them, they didn't even know that they were quote unquote the people of the book. They just know that they descended from this area, this region, and they tell you their path of migration, and they're practicing all these customs. And like this is very similar to what's in the Bible. And they're just like, well, this is our customs. So you look at individuals who, even within this walk itself, have strayed away from the path because they believe. It's not that they believe, because they truly don't understand what culture looks like. Go ahead, Jack.
You know, that's how they stole our identity by practicing our culture. You know, when the Ashkenazis first went, brought it into Russia, when the people who traveled from the west east, when they saw them practicing, our culture, they immediately then was associating them as being some type of Hebrew people when they weren't. And that's what they're holding on today. They say, well, look at us, we culture this and we do this. And we do that and we do that. That in itself make us the people. That's what make us entitled to the land.
I've read in Ola Uda's book, where he talks about, he's also evil, and he starts talking about some of their customs. And he said something about the Jewish people. He says how remarkable, he doesn't say remarkable, but he makes the comparison about how similar their cultures were, and he didn't understand why. He almost jokes and says it's as if one came from another. But it was because of cultural practices. I've never heard, and maybe you have, but I've never heard of an indigenous tribal group of people one day waking up and saying, I'm no longer following the practice of my ancestors because I don't believe in it. It is not until some type of exposure from the outside comes that causes them to view things differently. And something about that can pull on them. We see how Israel, they had their culture, they had their land, and we still gravitated to the nations around us. So something about that pulls. I don't know, maybe the elder could elaborate on that. Because I've never heard of it. So, power.
Oh, could it be, this is just something that comes to me. Could it be a matter of free will? Because we are all given free will, so you can be Hebrew, and a lot of black people are not Hebrew. But you could be Hebrew and still have free will to choose not to do what you're supposed to do. I mean, we're given free will. So I think basically it's a matter of some of us have it in our hearts. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, even though they're Hebrews, we don't all have the same mission. You know what I'm saying? We don't have the same spiritual purpose. You know, some of us, and then there's different elevations of spirituality. You know, because some of us are more spiritually awakened than others. You know, so we choose, we have free will. The Creator gave us free will to decide how to show ourselves to. You know what I'm saying? And we do that. And some choose negativity. You know, what we call negativity, you know. So, I mean, that's what I think. I think free will has a lot to do in your heart. So a lot of people just don't have the heart to do what they need to do, even what they know to do. You know, because they choose to do something.
I have a question. Who would choose what's right and what's wrong? Or who would dictate what's right and what's wrong to the Native American?
It should have been their culture.
Their culture.
Yes, sir.
It boils down. We don't understand how important culture actually is. Because what's right and wrong differs between people groups.
Okay.
Right? The morality will differ among people groups. And so when you've replaced your religion, you replace your culture with religion, you tend to have this. The problem is that Hebrews are replacing or still keeping religion instead of actually restoring the ancient paths.
Hallelujah. Right.
That's really what it boils down to. I'm seeing, this is my experience, right? I'm seeing assemblies that's actually telling people to tithe, not donate, tithe.
Okay.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing something that looks like an appearance of culture, this cosmetic costume culture. Why are you laughing, huh? This cosmetic,
You already know why I'm laughing. Go ahead.
this cosmetic costume culture, this pseudo presentation of something that can be perceived as culture, but when you strip it away, when you go into the depths of it, it's empty.
Dang.
It's the same. It's church. The approach to scripture is church. The application of scripture is church. That's right.
The concept of genealogy, yeah, you know you're Hebrew now. You now read through the genealogy. But you still don't have the proper perspective among being fruitful and multiplying. Still church. It's still a lot of church within the Hebraic community. So this is why I believe someone can come into this walk, stay for a while, be very overzealous,
Come on now.
and then eventually fizzle out because it's all the same. And it goes back to the very beginning where he started, which 9 times out of 10 was Christianity.
It's Christianity.
And at the root of it is that he doesn't have a culture that he's actually living. That he's actually living. Torah was not given for isolated individuals, number one. It was not given for that. It is to be applied, the Tanakh. See, okay, let's talk about some customs real quick.
Before you
Go ahead. 'Cause I want to make sure that we drive this point home.
It's the servitude. They no longer, like the prodigal son, he no longer wanted to serve his father. He no longer wanted to serve the culture of his ancestors. He wanted to be in a situation where, like the brother said behind me, empowered, where he's being served. And that's, to me, that's where you lose that zealous when you coming through your walk and you and then you hit the Hebrew, but you forget that you're a servant to Yah. And that's where you continue to seek this knowledge, whatever. But the servitude, as our ancestors did, brings you into where you at, bringing that culture that's just shining out here. Because you're a servant, and that's who we are. That's part of our culture.
Okay. Told off for that. Y'all heard that? Let's talk about some customs. Because this is the nitty gritty. Now, as I said earlier, every culture has some type of moral code. We also have that. And I believe this is where this Hebrew stop.
Come on, teacher.
So what is our moral code? If you just give me one word, what is it called? Torah. That's our moral code. Alright? And this is where I believe a lot of Hebrew stop. Now, within that, there are things that will be identified as customs. Like, the way you eat, the way you, not necessarily the way you dress, but there's a certain expectation. That's it's not saying you have to dress like a medieval knight. It's not saying that. It's not saying to wear t-shirts with fringes. It's not specifically saying that, but there's a certain expectation that's given within it, right? So yes, this is a part of culture, but I believe this is where a lot of people stop. And that becomes basically, without the proper context and understanding and application of the text, it becomes a system of do's and don'ts.
Sorry, say that again?
It becomes a system of do's and don'ts. While culturally speaking, there's a lot more that's there within the Tanakh that the Hebrew people have within their control the ability to do in the land of their captivity, and they're not doing it. What are one of the things that we talk about a lot here at TCA? Go ahead. Let's see. Let's talk about some customs. What is one thing that we talk about a lot?
Agriculture.
You said, y'all both said the same thing. Yes, that is one thing. We talk about what else? Arranging marriages. Arranging marriages. That's right. He looking at you.
Anybody trying to date around here?
Arranging marriages. Why is that important? Why is that important?
Because you make your daughter a whore, if not. I'm gonna be tough. If you don't, that's what happens.
That's right.
He said you make your daughter a whore if you don't. That's what's at stake. Especially if you're allowing the influence of public school. You are risking your daughter.
Because it starts in the mind.
Absolutely.
Just numbers real quick. 80% of marriages, the customary Western way, 80% end in divorce. With arranged marriages, only 15% of those marriages end in divorce. So if you let a child pick on their own, it's a guarantee, almost a guarantee that they're going to get divorced.
Yeah.
Damn.
And again, it goes back to, teaching our children that they're service to the culture. So when they do the arranged marriage, like we've seen other people in other cultures do this, especially while we was in our Christianity walk or whatever. And you're like, wow, why he does it? But he does it to protect. I know that man.
Protection.
I know him. I can read him through. I know his daddy. I know where he's been.
Okay.
That's one. Two is you owe me and our ancestors to go along with this because it's going to build our culture. It's going to build our family. So that's you, not yours. Just like I'm not me. I'm his. I'm sorry, teacher. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you good? And he was looking at his daughter right now when he was saying it.
She was trying to do a little look away like.
Right. Go ahead.
The thing that the young people have to understand is that the reason why the statistics are so high in divorce is because that tingling feeling you feel at the beginning leaves.
Goes away.
Every time.
Especially when you're matched with someone who's not good enough for you. You find that out really quickly. That tingly feeling really just a lie. It's just something for you, to get you in, and then it leaves, and you're stuck with all the rest.
Yep.
Your father, I feel like I'm talking to her now.
One family.
See, your father, he's not gonna be corrupted by the tingling feeling. He's gonna see security for you. That's all he's thinking about. That's all he'll see. Well, we all young trying to be tickly.
Right, right.
Doesn't last. 80%. Man, what?
Hallelujah.
That's insane.
Hallelujah.
So, once again, this is something, you have these children, that if you're delaying in this process, you are risking losing your child.
Right.
Same way you would be if you were to keep them in public school. You're risking your child. That's what you're doing. This is an aspect of culture.
Hey, Roy, if I could add something.
Go ahead, Elvis.
Just so everybody knows here, my wife is arranged for me.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
She's 20 years younger than me.
Hallelujah.
You know,
That's powerful.
and she is replicated the little man. Oh, you look like me?
It looked just
You like it?
And it's a scary thing when you do a thing like that. But one thing that she doesn't have to worry about is her security, is her happiness. She's got a calm man who knows how to deal with a lot of the things that help her secure inside and out.
Okay.
You can speak to me. Shut up.
Or years ago, you were like, don't cry, baby.
It was definitely a scary undertaking because everything in this world says arranged marriage is evil, you're going to be abused. There was so much negativity against it, even from close family members and associates at school. And
the parents were scared to death. Now they love me. We love each other.
yes.
Hallelujah.
And it was a process, and it's still a process, learning how to be a wife, removing a lot of the things I learned in my upbringing and being in the world. You don't realize so much stuff that you picked up from the world until the Father puts you through certain trials and then shows you, hey, this is what He still got in you. You need to remove this out of your life. And it's just a continual process. But being in an arrangement and with an older man who has the maturity and he has gone through, has the life experiences already, he has been patient with me. And while I go through these trials and he's there with me, he can help me through, be like, hey, you're going through this because of X, Y, and Z, and this is now a time where you need to trust the Father more and have more faith. So it's just been a great opportunity, and definitely would like to encourage the younger women, the young ladies in the room, to really don't follow what the world is pushing, because that does not lead to happiness and fulfillment. It leads to destruction, and what they're trying to do is destroy your womb. They're trying to destroy you being able to be fruitful and multiply.
The expansion is
Hey, that's cool. But that was really, really heavy. That's really, really, really important for people to hear. That's culture. That's living culture. Once you begin to live culture, you don't just walk away from it. You don't just dispose of it as someone who just has head knowledge. Or you can read these laws, statutes, and commandments, but then there's nothing else there. Then it's easy to dispose of. They're living culture. Arranged marriage, they bore a child.
son.
A son,
Hallelujah.
was he circumcised on the 8th day?
I circumcised.
Circumcised on the 8th day by his father.
Oh, man.
By his father. Culture. Go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the whole point of culture, and I know you can give a good definition, but from just the background point,
Go ahead.
is expansion. You know, and when you think about it, you know, he's going to live as such a healthy young man. There is 0% chance that we're going to divorce.
That's right.
You know, and a young man, the challenges that she was talking about, a young man will see your challenges and be like, you need to go. He's not going to understand. He's just not going to understand it. And that's really the pivotal point. That's really the pivotal point of it all. Is to be able to keep expanding. To be able to keep expanding is very important. So now everything is in-house. Now I've got a relationship with her father. She's got a relationship with my family. Everyone is whole. Do you understand? It's not people sneaking around the corner and doing all kind of craziness. Everything is whole, and it demands expansion.
Okay, hallelujah. Listen to what he's saying. That's a living testimony of what we're talking about. That's also a living example of what I'm saying is missing among us. So, you know, I hope it's not interpreted as me saying, oh, don't keep Torah. No, that's clearly not what I'm saying. Do that and more. And live the culture. These things, they're doing it. These things are within your control. They're within your reach. You just have to make, quick question. When your son gets old enough, are you sending him to public school?
What? By the time my son gets old enough, we'll have our own public.
You see that? So this is the crux of what I'm trying to get across. We're missing these type of things in our community. So I have a checklist of customs. He mentioned like 4 or 5 already, and I'm sure there are more as I go through this. Owning land, that's one of them. That's clearly a custom. Like this is what they did. Growing your own food, check. Making covenants. But remember what I said. Some people don't value that. But that's a certain mindset of an individual. Should that stop you?
No.
No, it shouldn't stop you. So we got to make sure that. Now I'm about to end this. And I'm so glad that the elder spoke up because he actually just encapsulated everything that I was about to try to get across. That is what's missing within the walk. It is the application of true legitimate culture, not just this head knowledge, not just this banner we wave saying we're Hebrew trying to convince the world. If someone was to follow him around for a year and study him like they did the Hebrews, he would see these customs look like the customs of the ancient Hebrews.
Hallelujah. Come on.
And he don't walk around saying, I'm a Hebrew.
He ain't got to.
He don't have to. And that type of stuff will draw people. Look, I don't know what the Amish believe fully. But I know they believe what they believe. I'll tell you that much. They believe wholeheartedly in whatever it is they believe. Because they live it. All this technology, and they don't want no stuff.
They got the dresses though.
But this mix of Hebrew Christianity, you got to identify it because that goes right back to the beginning of the point. never trust thine enemy.
That's right.
Right.
And religion is one thing that was imposed on us by an enemy. And whether it's the Christian flavor or the Hebrew flavor, it is still your enemy.
That's right.
So after a couple years, you should want more of this walk. There should be something in you that says, there gotta be more. And that's usually right. And that's usually what happens and why people walk away. Because they're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing that.
They literally say they're gonna only go this far. I heard Hebrews say, "I'm only gonna go this far, Hebrew. I'm only this much Hebrew."
Take this Hebrew
I'm
stuff
just
way
gonna,
too far.
and if I may say, I lost my son. I come out of the Marcus Garvey movement from all the way back then. So we did Torah in my house.
Okay.
And as I grew up and I had my son, he got it from the beginning of birth. And he went to playing these sports, and I got all into it. And then they was telling me for him to say he got to go to that school. He got to go to that school, that public school, so he can win them championships at that school. And I lost my son. I lost him.
Yeah.
He was a great kid, and he's gonna be a great man later. He's locked up tighter than a Dixie headband right now, and he don't even understand why. And he left my hand. You know, I kept that boy to my hip all the way into one incident. I let him go. I let him go and play with the culture of these heathens, and he never returned. I'm done with it. Hear this, what this brother is saying, because I lost my heir.
Yeah.
Y'all hear the weight of that?
Yes.
It's heavy.
He said he lost his heir. This is this man's first time here. He ain't heard me teaching about all this other stuff. This is serious.
Okay.
This is serious. We really got to evaluate what it is that we're doing in this walk. What it is that we really want out of it. Like these nice t-shirts, they cool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But what is it you really want? I'm sorry. But after experiencing culture, I ain't turning back.
Okay.
I ain't turning back. So,
I had a few more things, but I think this is the perfect time to just wrap it up. And I'll end with this, and then I'll open it up for any questions. Haggai 1, 5-7. Now therefore, thus says Yahuwah of hosts, consider your ways. You have sown much and bring in little. Eat, but you not have enough. You drink, but you are not filled with drink. Ye clothe you, but there is no warmth. And he that earneth wages to put him into a bag of holes. Thus says Yahuwah of hosts, consider your ways. If you still have your children at this point, with everything that is going on, with the direction of this country, you still have your children in public schools, consider your ways. If you boasting about being Hebrew, you waving that banner high, flying that flag, but you're not actually living the culture, consider your ways. You are slowly tricking back into organized religion. For some of you, hopefully no one here, but for some of you, slowly exiting the Hebrew faith. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Now, I'm gonna phrase this. I'm gonna ask this question. And I'm gonna see. Actually, I'm not gonna say that. I'm just play off of it. Any questions? There should be one. Any questions?
I got comments. Two
Okay.
comments.
Okay, what's your comment?
You guys questions first.
No, I don't have a question. I'm asking
I'm
all that
sorry.
questions, but there should be, and there's one specific question I'm looking for. I hope I hear it.
Okay, well, I ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you believe in forced marriage? Is arrangement that you're talking about forced?
Not at all. We don't. I do not believe in arranged marriage. I don't support it. I don't think
You mean
that's.
Forced marriage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forced marriage. Yes, I don't believe in forced marriages. No, I do not believe in that at all. I highly recommend everyone in here who has a child to begin to start having dialogue with parents, whether here or somewhere else, immediately. But this is not about forcing something on a child, or eventually a young woman or a young man. This is not about that. But this is something that needs to be done. And it is about protection. And it's so much more. So I would recommend doing that immediately. You have your hand raised.
Oh, I was someone that agreed with, the sermon and they identified with that to get started and to actually, what would you recommend for them to do to get more information on where to start and where to go from there?
That's an excellent question. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to hear. That should be the question. If you heard anything that I said today that actually pricked your heart or convicted you, your question should be, well, how do you do that? In the Atlanta area, you know how many assemblies there are? What are we gonna do next week? Go to another assembly. Hear somebody talk about who is Esau.
No, they gotta be past that.
They're not.
They should.
They're not. They should be, but they're not. They should be. So the question that should be asked is how? Where do you go from here? And now this is going to be the hardest part. Is that you have to submit.
Hallelujah.
See, I'll go ahead and reveal. I mean, it's not a reveal. People in here know. So that's my elder. He's not just a elder. He's my elder that I have submitted to. All right? He's my elder. I was teaching on culture for a couple years. Different aspects of culture, what I think we should be doing with the amount of information that I had, but it was still in the realm of theory. A strong desire, but never connected with the element that would take me to the next level. So these are things I wanted, these are things I knew we needed. I would teach about them. Some of you have been here for the last few years. Some of the stuff ain't new.
Okay.
I can talk about arranged marriages for a while.